There is something that most people don't understand about false confessions. They assume it could never happen to them. They assume that an innocent person would never, under any circumstances, look a detective in the eye and say the words, "I did it." They are wrong. And Marcus Webb's story is the proof. Because Marcus Webb was 23 years old, exhausted beyond reason, terrified beyond thought, and alone in a room with two detectives for 19 consecutive hours, when he finally said those words. He hadn't slept in 2 days. He hadn't eaten since the morning before. He had been told, repeatedly, that his fingerprints were at the scene, that a witness had identified him, that the evidence was overwhelming, that the only way to help himself was to cooperate. Every single one of those things was a lie. But Marcus Webb didn't know that. And so, in the gray early hours of a Thursday morning in June 1999, he confessed to the murder of a man he had never met. He would spend the next 17 years in prison before anyone found out the truth. It began on a warm Tuesday evening in June 1999, in the city of Hargrove, Illinois, a mid-sized city of about 90,000 people, the kind of place where the local news covered high school sports and city council disputes, where serious crime was the exception and not the rule. That Tuesday evening, a 58-year-old man named Robert Ashford was found dead in the parking lot behind his hardware store. He had been struck repeatedly with a blunt object. His wallet was missing. His watch, a gold anniversary piece his wife had given him 30 years earlier, was gone from his wrist. The investigation began immediately. Hargrove was not a city accustomed to homicide, and the pressure on the police department was immediate and intense. Robert Ashford was known in the community. He had run his hardware store for over 2 decades. His wife taught elementary school. His son had just graduated from the local college. The police needed an answer. They needed it quickly, and within 48 hours, they had decided that their answer was a young man named Marcus Webb. Marcus Webb was 23 years old in the summer of 1999. He had grown up 3 blocks from Robert Ashford's hardware store in a neighborhood that had seen better decades. He had dropped out of high school at 17, worked a series of short-term jobs, warehouse shifts, delivery runs, occasional construction work, and had 2 minor to bring Marcus Webb in for questioning. Marcus Webb walked into the Hargrove Police Department voluntarily on the morning of Thursday, June 17, 1999. He had been asked to come in and answer some questions. He was not under arrest. He was not read his rights. He was not told he could leave. He was 23 years old, and he trusted that the system worked. The interrogation that followed lasted 19 hours and 14 minutes. 2 detectives worked in shifts. They told Marcus that his fingerprints had been found on the victim's wallet. This was false. No fingerprint evidence ever connected Marcus to the scene. They told him that a witness had positively identified him from a photograph lineup. This was a distortion. Gerald Holt had said the young man he saw was similar in build to Marcus, nothing more. They told him that his best option, his only option, was to show remorse, to cooperate, to explain that it had been an accident, that things had gotten out of hand, that he hadn't meant for anyone to get hurt. This is a technique called the Reed method. It has since been widely discredited by psychologists and legal scholars. At the time, it was standard practice in police departments across America. By 2 o'clock in the morning, Marcus Webb had not slept in over 40 hours. He was shaking. He had been crying on and off for hours. He had asked for a lawyer twice. Both times, the detectives had told him that asking for a lawyer would make him look guilty, that innocent people didn't need lawyers, that getting a lawyer involved would only complicate things. At 2:17 in the morning, Marcus Webb confessed. He said the words they had been The physical evidence was thin. No weapon was ever found. The victim's stolen watch never recovered. No DNA evidence placed Marcus at the scene. The eyewitness, Gerald Holt, testified that he had seen a young black man near the scene, but under cross-examination admitted he could not positively identify Marcus as that person. But the confession was there, recorded on tape, Marcus Webb's voice, exhausted and barely coherent, saying the words. Marcus's defense attorney argued that the confession was coerced, that it had been obtained through psychological manipulation during an unlawfully prolonged interrogation. The attorney brought in a psychologist to explain false confession theory to the jury. The jury listened. Then they deliberated for 3 days. Then they came back, guilty of murder in the first degree. Marcus Webb was sentenced to 35 years in prison without possibility of parole. He was 24 years old when they took him away. His mother fainted in the courtroom. Marcus Webb served his sentence at Dalton Correctional Center in central Illinois. He was assigned to a cell block with men convicted of similarly serious crimes. He was young, slight in build, and carrying a confession that he had never stopped insisting was false. Prison is harder when you are innocent, not because the physical conditions are different, but because there is no acceptance, no closure, no moving forward. Every day you wake up, and the injustice is still there, unchanged, immovable, like a stone you are carrying that never gets lighter. Marcus filed his first appeal in 2001. It was rejected. He filed again in 2003. Rejected again. In 2000. Interrogation transcript again. He read it as a man who now understood things he hadn't understood in 1999, and what he read disturbed him deeply. Marcus had been denied a lawyer twice. The interrogation had lasted nearly 20 hours. The detectives had made explicit false claims about evidence. And the confession itself, Frank noticed this now with the clarity of hindsight, contained details that didn't match the crime scene. Marcus had described using a metal pipe. The forensic report indicated the weapon was more consistent with a wooden object. Marcus had said the robbery took place inside the store. Ashford's body had been found in the parking lot. The confession had been shaped by the questions the detectives asked. Marcus had been telling them what they wanted to hear, not what had actually happened. Down Gerald Holt, the original eyewitness, now 81 years old, who told them he had never been certain of what he saw, that the police had pressured him to be more definitive than he actually was. They found a piece of evidence that had been logged at the scene in 1999 and then quietly set aside, a partial palm print on the wooden fence at the edge of the parking lot. It had never been run through a database because, at the time, the confession had seemed to close the case. In 2015, they had it run through the updated national database. It matched a man named Theodore Crane. a 44-year-old with a history of robbery convictions in 2 states, who had been living in Hargrove in the summer of 1999, and who had moved to Nevada 3 weeks after Robert Ashford's murder. Theodore Crane was located. He was interviewed. Within 2 sessions, confronted with the palm print evidence and the timeline, he broke down and admitted what he had done 16 years. That last part was true, no one could say. Marcus Webb was in the prison workshop. He had learned carpentry in his years inside, and had become skilled at it, when a guard came to tell him he had an urgent legal call. Diana Reeves told him in plain, direct language what they had found, what it meant, what would happen next. Marcus stood holding the phone for a long time after she finished speaking. The workshop hummed around him. Other men moved past without knowing that something enormous had just shifted in the universe of one person's life. He asked her one question. He said, "How long will it take?" She said, "Months." "But Marcus, this is over. You're gonna go home." He said nothing after that for almost a minute. Then he said, "My mother never got to know." And Diana Reeves, who had been a lawyer for 22 years and thought she was past being broken by the work, found that she was not. On March 4, 2016, Marcus Webb walked out of Dalton Correctional Center. He was 40 years old. He had entered those gates at 24. There was no large crowd. His sister was there, and 2 cousins and Franco say, who had driven 4 hours to be present, and who shook Marcus's hand and could not find words and didn't try. Marcus stood in the car park for a while, looking at the sky. It was a cold, clear March morning. Have been valued by the state at just under $200,000. Theodore Crane was convicted of Robert Ashford's murder in 2016 and sentenced to life imprisonment. The 2 detectives who had conducted the 19-hour interrogation of Marcus Webb were never charged with any offense. One had retired in 2008. The other was still serving on the force at the time of Marcus's exoneration and was allowed to retire with full pension shortly afterward. No formal inquiry was ever conducted into the handling of the original investigation. The Hargrove Police Department issued a 2-paragraph statement expressing sympathy for Marcus Webb and confidence in the department's current practices. That was all. False confessions are the leading cause of wrongful conviction in murder cases in the United States. Not the second leading cause, the first. According to the Innocence Project, approximately 29% of DNA exoneration cases involved a false confession or incriminating statement. In the United Kingdom, the Criminal Cases Review Commission has identified coerced confession as a primary factor in dozens of quashed convictions over the past 3 decades. The psychology behind false confessions is well established and has been for years. Extreme sleep deprivation, prolonged isolation, false evidence ploys, and the specific psychological pressure of interrogation rooms can cause innocent people, particularly young people, people with anxiety disorders, people in unfamiliar institutional environments, to confess to crimes they did not commit. We have known this for decades, and yet, in courtrooms about bitterness toward the detectives who interrogated him. When asked, he says that bitterness is a cell you build inside yourself. and he has spent enough years in cells. He keeps a photograph of his mother on his desk at work. In the photograph, she is young, younger than Marcus is now. She is laughing at something off camera. He says he doesn't remember what she was laughing at, but he likes not knowing. He likes that there are still small mysteries left. Frank Osei, the retired detective whose conscience eventually unlocked the truth, died in 2018, 2 years after Marcus's release. Marcus attended the funeral. He sat in the front row at the family's invitation. He was the only non-family member asked to speak. He said that Frank Osei had made a mistake, and then Frank Osei had done something that, in Marcus's experience, was rarer than it should be. He said Frank faced it. There is a question I keep returning to when I think about Marcus Webb's story, and it is not the dramatic one, not who did it, or how it was solved. Those answers came eventually. The question I keep returning to is a smaller one. It is this: on the night of June 17, 1999, at 2 o'clock in the morning, in a room with no windows and 2 detectives and 19 hours of pressure bearing down on him, what would you have done? Most of us believe we would have held firm. We believe that because we have not been there. We have not felt what Marcus Webb felt in that room. The research tells us that many of us would have broken, not because we are weak, but because the techniques used in that room were designed, specifically and deliberately, to break people. Marcus Webb was not weak. Marcus Webb was human, and the system that was supposed to protect him used his humanity against him. That is not a flaw in one case, in one city, in 1 year. That is a structural problem, and it is still there. Who's going to fix it?